Dinosaurs, the whole story. Settle in and imagine the world as it was long before cities, long before humans, when Earth's continents wore different shapes and the oceans cut unfamiliar paths between them. This is the story of the dinosaurs, where they came from, how they lived, how they ruled the land for more than 160 million years, and how most of them came to an abrupt end when a rock from space changed the planet forever. It is also the story of survival, because one lineage of dinosaurs did not disappear. They are with us still, light-boned, warm-blooded, and everywhere. Birds. Our journey begins in the late Triassic period, about 235 to 201 million years ago, when most of Earth's land was joined into one supercontinent, Pangaea. The climate on average was warm and seasonal, with wide deserts inland and monsoon belts nearer the coasts. Early dinosaurs evolved within a larger group of reptiles called archosaurs, the same broader lineage that produced crocodile relatives and pterosaurs. The first dinosaurs were small to medium-sized bipedal animals with long tails for balance, light skeletons, and grasping forelimbs. Names like Herrerasaurus, Coelophysis, and Eoraptor appear in Triassic rock layers, telling us that carnivory was common in early forms. Though plant eaters were already present, they were not yet the dominant land animals. Large crocodile-like pseudosuchians still held many top predator roles, but the stage was set. Then, around 201 million years ago, a mass extinction closed the Triassic, likely linked to huge volcanic outpourings as Pangaea began to rift apart. Many competitors vanished, and dinosaurs stepped into newly open ecological roles. By the early to middle Jurassic, dinosaurs diversified quickly and spread across the splitting continents. Paleontologists recognize two great branches of the dinosaur family tree: the Saurischians, lizard-hipped, which include the long-necked sauropodomorphs and the meat-eating theropods, and the Ornithischians, bird-hipped, a mainly plant-eating group that would later yield armored forms, duck-billed herds, and horned giants. Jurassic landscapes in places like the Morrison Formation of western North America or the Tendaguru beds of Tanzania preserve classic scenes. Herds of long-necked sauropods such as Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Brachiosaurus browsing at different heights, stegosaurs swinging tail spikes defensively, and big theropods like Allosaurus stalking the open floodplains. Sauropods deserve special attention. They were the largest land animals ever to live, some exceeding 30 meters in length and tens of tons in mass. How could land animals get that big? Several features helped: lightweight, air-filled bones, similar in concept to those of birds, long necks that let them gather food without moving their enormous bodies far, efficient respiratory systems that likely included air sacs, and slow, steady growth supported by a constant intake of plant matter. Their legs were columnar, like pillars, to bear weight, and their feet left broad, circular prints with crescent-shaped hand impressions ahead of them. Trackways show straight paths and coordinated steps, evidence of energy-efficient walking and sometimes group movement. Theropods, meanwhile, ranged from small, fast insect or lizard eaters to apex predators. Their bodies were built for agility: long hind limbs, balancing tails, flexible necks, and jaws with blade-like teeth in many species. Over time, theropods produced an astonishing variety of forms, including the famously large Tyrannosaurus rex of the very late Cretaceous and many smaller feathered species. Feathers, once thought exclusive to birds, are now known from numerous non-avian theropods preserved in fine-grained rocks, especially in China's Liaoning province, where delicate impressions record veins, filaments, and even color patterns through microscopic pigment bodies called melanosomes. Feathers first evolved for insulation and display. Only later did some lineages adapt them for gliding and powered flight. Ornithischians were the other great half of dinosaur diversity and dominated many plant-eating niches. Early forms were small bipeds, but by the Cretaceous, several distinctive branches flourished. The theriophorans carried armor, stegosaurs in the Jurassic with backplates and tail spikes, and ankylosaurs later in the Cretaceous with low tank-like bodies and tail clubs. The ornithopods developed strong chewing batteries and social behaviors. Their later members, the hadrosaurids or duck-billed dinosaurs, had hundreds of tightly packed teeth that formed grinding surfaces able to process tough vegetation efficiently. Some hadrosaur species bore crests connected to nasal passages, turning their heads into resonating chambers for communication. The ceratopsians, the horned dinosaurs, evolved heavy skulls with frills and horns, from modest beginnings in Asia to the spectacular Triceratops and its relatives in North America. Frills may have functioned in species recognition, display, and muscle attachment, while horns were likely used in defense and ritualized combat. How do we know what dinosaurs ate, how they moved, or how fast they grew? Multiple lines of evidence converge. Teeth show diet. Slicing teeth with serrations suit meat, while broad, ridged teeth work like plant shears and grinders. Coprolites, fossilized droppings, sometimes contain fragments that confirm diet directly. Trackways capture gait and behavior. Speed can be estimated from stride length, and parallel trackways of similar animals record herding. Bone histology, thin sections of fossil bone viewed under a microscope, reveals growth rings, vascular patterns, and remodeling that inform growth rates and metabolism. Many dinosaurs grew quickly, reaching adult sizes in a handful of years and suggesting active rather than sluggish physiologies. Isotopic analyses of oxygen and bone phosphate hint at internal temperature regulation. While debates continue over exactly where dinosaurs fall on the endothermy-ectothermy spectrum, evidence increasingly supports warm-blooded, active lifestyles in many groups. Nests and eggs add a crucial piece. Dinosaur reproduction, like that of all reptiles and birds, relied on eggs, but nesting strategies varied. Fossil nests from Asia and North America preserve clutches arranged in neat rings or piles, sometimes with embryos and hatchlings inside. Adults are occasionally found atop nests in brooding postures, limbs spread and tail wrapped, remarkably bird-like. Growth rings in juvenile bones and assemblages of multiple young of the same age suggest that some species nested in colonies and that parents may have protected and possibly fed young, at least for a time. These behaviors strengthen the evolutionary bridge from non-avian dinosaurs to birds, which routinely brood, guard, and teach their offspring. Dinosaurs did not live alone. They shared their skies with pterosaurs, flying reptiles not classified as dinosaurs, and their seas with large marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and mosasaurs. That distinction matters. Despite popular images, sea dinosaurs and flying dinosaurs are technically incorrect labels. Dinosaurs proper were primarily land animals, with a few that could swim well, while pterosaurs and marine reptiles were separate branches of the archosaur or reptile family tree. On the ground, dinosaurs lived alongside early mammals, lizards, turtles, amphibians, and a vast array of insects. Flowering plants, angiosperms, appeared in the Cretaceous and gradually reshaped ecosystems. Their rapid growth and nutrient-rich tissues may have supported the success of some herbivorous dinosaurs, while pollinators diversified in tandem. Dinosaurs were global. Fossils come from every continent, including Antarctica. In high-latitude regions during the Cretaceous, Earth's climate was warmer than today, and forests grew near the poles. Fossil wood rings and bone microstructures show seasonal growth, and trackways reveal that some dinosaurs lived in polar regions year-round, enduring long winter nights. On islands, dinosaurs experienced evolutionary rules, still seen today: dwarfing due to limited resources, or gigantism in predator-free niches. Sediment types, pollen grains, and associated animal fossils paint local environmental contexts. Floodplain rivers that left mudstones and sandstones, coastal lagoons that trapped fine silts, dune fields where only tough, low plants survived. Together, they let us reconstruct not just animals, but entire habitats. Communication and sociality leave subtler traces. Crested hadrosaurs likely used visual displays and calls. Horned dinosaurs may have engaged in head-to-head pushing or displays judged more by posture than by wounds. Bone beds containing hundreds of individuals of the same species suggest herd behavior, and sometimes tragic mass death events from droughts or floods. Pathologies in bones, healed fractures, infections, arthritis, show that individuals lived with injuries long enough to heal, implying resilient physiologies and supportive group contexts for some species. Claw marks on riverbanks, bite marks on bones, and shed teeth in feeding sites document predator-prey encounters. In a few extraordinary cases, a predator and prey are found locked together, frozen at the moment of struggle by sudden burial. As the Cretaceous wore on, 145 to 66 million years ago, ecosystems grew even more complex. Tyrannosaurids in North America and Asia evolved powerful skulls with bone-crushing bites. Ankylosaurs perfected body armor. Some species carried tail clubs capable of cracking bone. Ceratopsians diversified into a parade of frill and horn shapes, perhaps driven by sexual selection and species recognition as much as by defense. Small feathered theropods experimented with gliding and then flight. True birds descended from small maniraptoran theropods, shed teeth, long tails over time, developed keeled breastbones for flight muscles, and spread into forests and shorelines worldwide. And then, around 66 million years ago, the world changed in a geological instant. A massive asteroid, roughly 10 kilometers across, struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating the Chicxulub impact crater. The evidence is global and clear. A thin boundary layer rich in iridium, rare in Earth's crust but common in asteroids, microscopic spherules of melted rock, and shocked quartz grains formed under sudden intense pressure. The energy released was beyond anything in human experience. Immediate effects near the impact included wildfires, earthquakes, mega tsunamis, and hurricane-force winds. But the longer-lasting worldwide consequences came from material blasted into the atmosphere. Dust and aerosols, along with soot from fires, dimmed sunlight for months to years. Photosynthesis faltered. Food chains built on plant productivity began to collapse on land and in the oceans. This event, the Cretaceous Paleogene (KPG) mass extinction, ended the reign of most dinosaurs, along with many marine reptiles, ammonites, and a host of plankton groups. It was not absolute darkness everywhere at once, and it was not instant for every species, but the ecological shock was severe. Some animals survived better than others. Small body size helped. So did diets flexible enough to include seeds, detritus, or carrion. The only dinosaurs to make it through were the avian ones, birds. Why them? Likely a combination of traits: small size, high reproductive rates, diverse diets, perhaps sheltering behavior, and the ability to fly long distances in search of resources. Crocodilians survived too, buffered by semi-aquatic lifestyles and slow metabolisms. Mammals, many of them small and adaptable, multiplied rapidly in the aftermath and radiated into new roles as ecosystems recovered. If the asteroid was the decisive blow, other factors may have set the stage. Around the same time, immense volcanic eruptions in India, the Deccan Traps, released gases that could have altered climate and ocean chemistry. The relative roles of impact and volcanism are still studied, but the impact's global signature, timing, and modeled effects align closely with the extinction layer. What matters for our story is that dinosaurs, dominant for so long, were suddenly reduced to one surviving branch. The rest became part of the fossil record. Bones mineralized, footprints hardened, eggshells preserved, and traces sealed into rock layers that would one day rise and weather out for someone to find. How do we piece the story together with confidence? Paleontology is both fieldwork and laboratory science. In the field, crews map layers, document positions, and carefully excavate fossils from sediment with brushes, dental picks, and plaster jackets. In the lab, CT scanners peer inside skulls and bones without damaging them, revealing brain cavities, sinus systems, and inner ears, clues to balance, hearing ranges, and behavior. Thin sections of bone show growth rates and seasonal patterns. Comparative anatomy relates new finds to known relatives, letting scientists build evolutionary trees. Radiometric dating, especially using the radioactive isotopes in volcanic ash layers above or below fossil beds, pins ages to millions of years precision. Stable isotope studies reconstruct diets and climates. Even fossilized soft tissues, rare but real, preserve skin impressions, feather arrangements, and in a few cases, proteins that echo original biology. Famous fossil localities illustrate different chapters. The Morrison Formation captures late Jurassic floodplains with sauropods and Allosaurus. The Yixian Liaoning deposits in China record early Cretaceous lakes where feathered dinosaurs and early birds were preserved in extraordinary detail. The Hell Creek Formation in North America shows the very end of the Cretaceous, with Triceratops, Hadrosaurs, small theropods, and T-Rex, and then the immediate aftermath, just above the extinction boundary. The Tendaguru beds of Tanzania, the Kem group of Morocco, Patagonia's Cretaceous rocks, and Australia's polar dinosaur sites each add regional variety to the global picture. Together, they show that dinosaurs were not a single type, but a long, branching, adaptive radiation occupying almost every terrestrial habitat on Earth. What were dinosaurs really like day to day? Not monsters, not movie villains, animals. They woke, moved, ate, avoided danger, reproduced, cared for their young in many cases, migrated when needed, and died. Many lived in groups. Some were solitary. Some used color and structure to communicate. Some engaged in ritualized contests rather than lethal fights. They were athletes of their environments, hadrosaurs traveling long distances to water, ceratopsians defending calves, ankylosaurs standing their ground, small theropods weaving through vegetation with bird-like efficiency. Even the giants fit into ecosystems without collapsing them. Long necks partitioned food resources by height, and herds moved in ways that let plants recover. Predators were fewer than prey and selected vulnerable individuals, behaviors that sustained balance instead of destroying it. The end, when it came, was not the end of their story. Birds are living dinosaurs in a strict evolutionary sense, descended from small feathered theropods. Their skeletons carry the legacy: three-toed feet, S-shaped necks, wishbones, air sac systems for breathing, and eggs with hard shells. When you hear a robin in spring, watch swifts carve the evening, or notice the patient focus of a heron, you are looking at traits refined across the age of dinosaurs and shaped by the trials that followed. The persistence of this lineage underscores a larger lesson. Life is both fragile in the face of sudden shocks and astonishingly resilient over time. Why do dinosaurs matter so much to us? Partly because they are dramatic, large, strange, and ancient. But the deeper reason is that they reveal how evolution works over immense time scales. They show how bodies can be transformed, forelimbs into wings, scales into feathers, simple teeth into complex grinding batteries. When environments encourage novelty and selection, preserves what works. They show how geography guides life. Continents split and drive diversification. Land bridges allow migrations. Sea level changes isolate and reconnect populations. And their ending shows how external events, rare but real, can reset the biological clock, not as a judgment, but as a consequence of living on a dynamic planet in a busy cosmos. The scientific picture is still sharpening. Every year, new species are described. Some change long-standing assumptions. Others fill expected gaps. A century ago, dinosaurs were imagined as slow and swamp-bound. Today, evidence paints them as active, complex, and often social. A generation ago, feathers were for birds. Now we see feathered coats across many theropod branches and even possible filamentous coverings in some plant eaters. Ideas about metabolism have shifted toward endothermy or mesothermy, varied strategies for keeping bodies at functional temperatures. Technology keeps adding tools: synchrotron imaging to read chemistry and fossils, finite element analysis to model bite forces, and drone mapping to trace trackways across inaccessible cliffs. And so the whole story resolves. Dinosaurs arose in the Triassic amid archosaur relatives. They survived a mass extinction at the Triassic-Jurassic boundary and then diversified across Jurassic and Cretaceous landscapes into large plant eaters and apex predators, agile omnivores and specialized herbivores, armored tanks and crested callers, some bearing feathers that later made flight possible. They occupied every continent, from equator to poles, and interacted in rich ecosystems alongside pterosaurs in the skies, marine reptiles in the seas, and early mammals in the undergrowth. They reproduced with eggs and often protected their young. They communicated, migrated, and left abundant clues to their behavior in trackways, bone beds, nests, and injuries that healed. About 66 million years ago, a large asteroid struck Earth, casting a shadow over the world that collapsed food chains. Most dinosaur lineages vanished in the K to PG extinction, but the avian branch survived and radiated into the birds we know. That is the arc. Origin, rise, diversity, and a dramatic narrowing followed by a quieter, enduring presence. If you walk a riverbank where mud dries to a thin crust, look down. A footprint pressed today can hold a shape tomorrow. Covered by silt, buried by floods, hardened by time, it could outlast buildings and languages. One day, someone might find it and wonder. That is how we know the dinosaurs, by what remains when a life ends and a planet keeps its notes. The rocks are full of such notes. We have learned to read them patiently, fallibly, and with increasing clarity. The dinosaurs' world is gone, and yet it surrounds us, written in stone, sung in birds, echoed in our curiosity about deep time. They were not a mistake to be corrected or a spectacle to be applauded. They were an answer to the conditions of their age, and a successful one, measured not in years, but in tens of millions of years. In telling their story, we also tell something about our own, that life adapts, that change is constant, and that resilience often wears unexpected forms. When we look up and see a hawk circling on a thermal, or a flock of geese drawing a changing line across the sky, we are witnessing a living chapter of a very old book. Dinosaurs ruled the land. One branch took to the air and never came down. So this is the whole story in outline and in essence. Born in a warm Triassic world, tested by extinction, expanded into every suitable niche, shaped by evolution into forms both elegant and formidable, then struck by chance from beyond our atmosphere, and yet not gone. Their legacy continues. Earth remembers them in hillsides and quarries, in museum halls, and in the living grace of birds. We remember them because they help us understand time, adaptation, and the delicate balance that makes any age, ours included, possible.